All right. Good evening, divine ones. We are in store for a great show tonight. As normal, I always play an introductory video, and I'm going to do that. But before I cue this video up, I wanted to give some background to you guys so you understand why I'm doing this. This video is an actual recording of a Christian recording artist by the name of Jason Upton. And I found this a couple of years ago, and I've held on to this. But this video is very special because in the recording, this was a live session that this recording artist was doing. In the live session, after it was done and they were playing back the recording, they found out they had captured angels in the background of this song. So I wanted to give you guys background of the context behind this amazing song itself. It's very powerful. And so I'm going to cue this up right now. And then when we're done playing this, I'm going to bring in Jack and Margy Flynn. I can't wait. Here we go.
Gotta have new ears, new ears. Heavenly places, heavenly places, heavenly, heavenly places, heavenly places, heavenly places, heavenly, heavenly places. New revelation, new revelation. What are you doing? Where are you going? You're gonna give. Some of you have been fighting for a very long time. For a very long time. Sticking out your fists and fighting. God wants to take you to new places, new places, new places, new places, new places, new places, new revelation, new perspective, aerial view, aerial view, aerial view, aerial view, aerial view. I declare over you, God has given you the air. God has given you the air. So fly. time to spread out your wings. It's time to shake off the things that hold you down. It's time to spread out your wings. And fly. Just do you see what I see? Do you hear what I hear? Do you know what I know? Do you want what I want? Given you wings.
Amazing.
I have set you free from the things that held you. I have given you wings. I have set you free. To me,
Um, Hear it? Amazing.
Like a bird in the air, you have escaped the snare. Like a bird in the air, you've escaped the snare. Like a bird in the air, you've escaped the snare of the enemy. You have been set free. You have been set free. You have been set free. You have been set free.
It is.
Nothing, 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 no, nothing can ever hold you.
There you go. Angels. There you go. All right. Well, I hope you heard that, and this is recorded. I heard this a couple years ago, and it touches me every single time that I listen to it. And there's actually a longer version of this that you can find somewhere online where it's so profound. It just pierces you into your soul. It really does. So I'm grateful for everybody. I'm going to bring in Jack and Margy Flynn in just a second, but I got to give a shout out to my great moderator, CV's daughter. Thank you for being here. Kathy, thank you for being here. Sam, thank you for being here. I'm grateful for you for being here all these years with me and moderating for me. I'm grateful for all my tribe that comes here all the time and supports me. Carol Johnson, thank you for being here. I appreciate you very much. Dana Freelack, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here too. Wally B, Betty Shoop, thank you. I appreciate you guys being here as well. once in a lifetime, you come across these individuals that you're like connected to at a soul level, right? And a couple weeks ago, I did a show with Michelle Moore on the Michelle Moore Show. It was kind of an impromptu invite, and it happened to be a day that she normally hosts Jack and Margy Flynn, as well as Mike Gill was on there. And so I was on there, and I gave a lot of truth. And I know I rocked their world with the information I shared for Michelle and validating what she needed. But the point of me being there was to actually come in contact with these divine souls. That is who Jack and Margy Flynn are. They truly are salt of the earth. They are. And I had an amazing conversation with them a couple days later. I think we spoke for about an hour. And I'll tell you what, the conversation that I had was at such a level that, it invoked a lot of emotion in me, because it's not common to be able to communicate and express levels of discernment and knowledge with individuals, even in the truther movement. There's levels of truth that people are willing to accept, willing to explore, willing to talk about. Jack and Margy are those individuals who have actually been doing this. They are constitutional experts. They have been out there for decades and decades and decades, putting knowledge out there, teaching people, asking nothing in return. This is one of the things I love about them the most. When I got into what you call the sovereignty movement a few years ago, and I started not following David Lester straight, because I started seeing all of his lies, they was perpetuating. And there were other organizations that were out there jumping on the bandwagon as well. And one of the problems that I had was, if this knowledge is freely given to us, then why are we having to pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for information that we only get part of the information to help us in our certain situations? And it seems like there was always that secret sauce that was missing, right? I've spoken to so many people that went through these different platforms. They've invested a lot of money, and then they go through the processes to change their status, to do all these different things, or go to a court case, and they always end up getting in more trouble. And that's because they're entering in the lion's den at that juncture, and they're not using the Constitution. There was always this missing element of the Constitution itself. And Jack and Margy Flynn, that's where they come from, is the Constitution. They're purist. And that's what I love about them. Again, they don't ask for anything in return, and they freely give. And I've never heard anything bad about these individuals. I've only heard nothing but great things from every single individual that's come in contact with them. So I'm really honored, and I'm really blessed that they were willing to come on here and share their time and their knowledge with us. So without further ado, good evening, Jack and Margy. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, divine ones. Oh, let's unmute you, dear.
Introduction.
Make sure you unmute yourself.
There you go. I just did. Thank you for inviting
There
us.
you go.
To be here.
And thank you for that wonderful
Yes,
introduction.
it was lovely.
Well,
You bet.
we appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
How was your weather there?
Well, you're deserving of it and so much more.
Oh, thank
Well,
you. I know we had problems a few days ago.
it's
It's weather.
yeah, it's
Gotta
like
do it.
Missouri. Wait 5 minutes and the weather changes.
It's like that in Arkansas too.
And it came originally from New England,
That's right.
but things pass around the world rather quickly.
They do. Yeah, the weather is something else.
They
Well, good to
do.
be here,
They
my
do.
friend. Good to see you.
Yes.
Good to talk with
It
you
really
again.
is. Thank
you.
you. I appreciate you guys. You are like kindred spirits. I'm telling you what. I was telling Margy, after I had my conversation with you, I went home and shared to my wife our conversation, and I was in tears. because it's not very often that I'm able to communicate with individuals at this level. You know, I have a small circle that I keep very tight, that are very close to me, so I freely communicate with them. And so going outside of that circle and finding other individuals that are at this level of understanding and discernment of the truth and the light that's out there, it's refreshing and it's needed. It's like another fresh breath of air that's needed. And so I appreciate you guys. And I'm looking so much forward to hearing what you guys have to share with us. So I'm going to turn it over to you and just go ahead.
Right.
All right. Well, it's very nice of you to have said that, Mel. And as you say, it gets tougher and tougher to meet kindred spirits in this world. That's why some people in the Truther movement are very lonely, because there's not much company out there.
No.
We wish there were. We wish people would open up and people would broaden their horizons and people would take a look at new things and old things, in particular our Constitution, our original organic Constitution of 1787, as amended with the Bill of Rights in 1791. As I mentioned to you before, and we've said forever, that's the only thing that Margie and I use. It's the supreme law of the land. It's the supreme law of our constitutional republic. We use it, and we wish more people would. Unfortunately, people are not doing that. I wish they were. Margie, why don't you begin, and then we'll pick up from there.
Well, we've been doing this a long time, as we mentioned to you before. And it's been an interesting journey because we've met, as you can imagine, thousands of people over the decades.
Millions.
And,
right?
you know, if we looked at it in the bigger picture, we've reached millions. But it's always been rather puzzling to us and disappointing that most of the people that we did reach, who seemed to gravitate to what we had to say, were mostly interested in just resolving a personal problem or an issue that they were facing at that time, and did not understand that what we had hoped they would do would be to share the teachings and help other people, you know, pay it forward, so to speak, and form serious intentional groups who would be acting to restore constitutional governance to America. You know, we've seen movements come and go, you know, the next bright, shiny object, the new kid on the block, whatever. And it's always about a quick fix for this issue or that issue. But it's never about, well, wait a minute, what's the fundamental problem with our country? And I mean, it's so simple that it almost seems ridiculous to have to say it, but we do have to say it because people still don't see it. It's like being in a Where's Waldo world. You know, they don't see what's staring them in the face. And the simple truth of it is that our country is a constitutional republic. We have a supreme law of this land. It's the original organic Constitution of 1787, as amended with that nice Bill of Rights in 1791. Our country should be operating pursuant to this Constitution and nothing else. And yet it's doing anything but. Anybody who has had any experiences with what passes for government these days can probably speak to this fact that they have not been afforded their natural rights. They have been treated as if they are slaves, because that's how this corporation that masquerades as a government sees all of us. And whether that's the master corporation in DC or whether it's the subsidiary corporations in states and counties and cities and towns, it's the same deal. They do not have any respect for the people. And in a sense, I can see why, because we, the people, as a society, have not commanded their respect. I had the opportunity to write something back to a woman today who had written me with a question. And I posed a few things for her to think about, including the fact that we, the people, are the de jure government of this country. That means we are the masters. And the people to whom we delegate a little bit of our authority to operate the machinery of government are our servants. Now, that doesn't mean we have to be lording over them and be cruel to them, but it does mean that we have a duty and a right to oversee them, to supervise them and to make sure that they stay within their constitutional limits. Most Americans don't have a clue what that means. They just don't. And because they don't have a clue what that means, they have suffered so many abuses of their rights by and through everything that passes for government these days. And they still don't see that this is an egregious wrong that must be corrected. If America is going to survive as a constitutional republic and is going to remain a so-called free country with people who are truly free and people who are conscious, who have a conscience, and who care about what is right and what is wrong, then we have to get back to the Constitution. So our focus for a very long time has been restoring constitutional governance to America. And we have been trying to wean the people away who keep contacting us, asking us for personal help with personal issues, because I don't want to be an alarmist, but as I see it and I feel it, our country is right on the razor's edge. There's not a lot of time left for the American people to get their act together, to recognize their inherent internal and political power, and to start exercising that power in the way I believe our founders intended us to do. And that is by and through using the Constitution to hold every public official accountable pursuant to his oath. And that's a simple premise, but it doesn't seem to be one that a lot of people have been able to grasp. Now, recently we are seeing a little tick going up where people are beginning to connect the dots and saying, well, this guy is not right and that guy's not right. And they're beginning to see a pattern of absolute deception, because our political scene is nothing but a clown show. It's kabuki theater on steroids. And anybody who thinks that it's real and is worrying about who am I going to vote for and whatever, what rally am I going to attend, save your time. You're better off watching paint dry. You'll get more out of it. At least you'll have a nice fresh wall to look at. As far as the election goes, I mean, no matter who runs, it's going to be a rigged game. So why waste your time? And why would we care about which puppets we put into the phony corporate government? We wouldn't and we shouldn't. What we should be doing is concentrating on how we're going to remove these pinheads, because they are liars, they are thieves, they are cheats, and unfortunately, they're quite very well communist. And that deceptive ideology has ruined many a good country. And if we as Americans sit back and just passively say, well, okay, that's the way it is, we're going to be living in a real communist despotism, and it won't go away, folks. And if we lose freedom in our country, then I think the rest of the earth can kiss freedom goodbye, because I don't think it'll ever shine its light on this planet again. So we really do have to get serious. We laugh and we joke and we try to get people to open up a little bit, to get relaxed so they'll actually hear what we have to say. But make no mistake, this is a serious message and our time is running out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over for Jack and he can get serious real fast.
Well, not that serious. Not that fast.
Get the stick.
Anyway, to echo what Margie said, America, we have to take a look at America, how America was founded. Okay. But let's get right to the Constitution, then we can go back a little bit. The Constitution, as far as we're concerned, was the finest egalitarian document ever written by mankind for the rulership of a nation by the people of the nation. This has never happened before in the history of existence. Never. Now, we don't know about millions and millions of years ago, but in known history and remote history, this has never happened. The closest it ever came was in some of the Gaelic communities, some of the Indian communities, but nothing like our Constitution. It placed the power over government in the hands of the American people. Well, there have been many truth tellers that have come on this earth over the eons and millions and thousands of years. And one of the most famous is someone that many of you adore, as we do, Jesus. He walked the earth 2,000 years ago. He was bringing the truth to the people. He was trying to raise the consciousness level of the people. He was trying to raise them into another state of being while living on the earth. Okay? He was a truth teller. Well, what happens to truth tellers? They spit in his face and they crucified him. That's not the way to treat a truth teller. And the American people did the same thing to the Constitution. Once it was created, once the nation was settled to a certain extent, the people basically spit on the Constitution, wiped their feet on it, and never enforced it once in the history of this nation. Never. As a society, the American people have never, even once, held their government to the constitutional mandates imposed upon government. Never once. That's a disgrace, because that document places the power of government in your hands. Now, Margie and I, coming to when we started, I started over 70 years ago. Margie started over 60 years ago. When we first came on the scene, we were fairly young. And we used the power and the authority of the Constitution like no one has ever used it before. And people said, what are you using the Constitution for? Our answer is, it's the supreme law of the land. And everyone in government has taken an oath to this Constitution. But very few at that time, I'm talking the 50s now, very few at that time were upholding their oaths. None of them uphold their oaths now. And I mean none, nowhere, anywhere. If you know anyone who upholds his oath and upholds the Constitution and has sponsored constitutional positions, statutes, rules, and regulations, let us know. We'd like to meet the guy. If you know anyone or gal, if you know anyone who's using the Constitution to win in court or win victories against the government, let us know. We'd love to meet these people. Because as far as we know, Margie and I and our people, several thousand of them, are the only people in the country using the Constitution against government. That's a disgrace, okay? When you have a gift given to you to rule the nation, to protect you, your family, and the nation itself, you should pick up that gift, okay? Now, when you have a Constitution that will protect your rights, and if used correctly, return your government, or it's really not your government at all, okay? It's a corporation, all right? But you call it a government. Return that government back to constitutional authority, that would be wonderful, but we don't see anyone doing it, all right? Now, we've been very active for a long time. We've used the power and the authority of the Constitution both in and out of court. Not only we, but our people. And over the years, we probably, I can only give you an estimation, but 10 to 15,000 cases have been won both in court and out of court by the American people who followed our methods. And remember, our methods are not our methods. Our methods, they're our methods, but they were designed pursuant to what the forefathers did and what the forefathers would have done to bring a totally unconstitutional government back to a constitutional government and bring an unconstitutional court back to a constitutional court. So that's what we've done. We wish other people would do it. Now, we all know on the present scene, well, I can't say we all know, but I would say a lot of the people in this audience are very well aware of what's going on in the country and very well aware that we live in a treasonous nation run by a treasonous communist corporate domestic enemy government, not only in DC, but in every state in the Union, every city across the country. All right. This is not how the Constitution set forth America, but this is how the people have allowed America to denigrate into that pit of hell almost because they didn't support the Constitution. Now, let's go back a little bit to the founding of the country. And I won't go into a lot of details here, but this is something people really should know. America was founded as a fraud. Now, a lot of you are going to say, no, that's not true. America was founded as a great nation. The professed intent of America to be founded as a great nation is not fraud. That was correct. but it was founded as a fraud because money, the golden rule operates everywhere. All right. And the golden rule is he who has the gold rules. That's the bottom line.
Mhm.
So the people in England, okay, who basically get rid of the Stuarts, the Jew element, okay, that took over the money interest in England,
The bankers.
the bankers, yeah, said, hey, this has worked very well for us everywhere. We've been thrown out of a lot of countries. Yeah, we know that. But then we're invited back in and we do the same thing and we're thrown out again. But during the time we're there, we own everything. So it doesn't matter. Then we go someplace else and we use our same tactics. Now, we can't denigrate any group of people just because it's a group of people. And if anyone does that, he should really take a look at himself and what he's doing. But we can definitely denigrate a group of people by the facts and the history of what they have done. Okay? I mean, let's face it. The Irish have a bunch of drunks in Ireland. Are we going to say no? There aren't a bunch of drunks in Ireland. There are. I lived in Ireland for a while. I'm of Irish heritage. Yeah, a bunch of drunks in Ireland. There are a bunch of mafioso in Italy. Yeah, of course there are. You know, you can't hide that. So we have a Jew element at the highest levels that has controlled the money of this world for a very long time,
Yes.
And that Jew element owns every central bank in this world. Okay. So going back to England in the beginning of the country, as I say, the Jews got the Stuarts out, and the Jews had pretty well the control that they wanted, of course, with the aristocracy of England. And the Jews married into that aristocracy as well. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to do that. But there was a method to their
agenda.
Yeah, they had an agenda. There was a methodology in terms of what they were doing. And what they did after a few hundred years basically settled the whole country, England and the United Kingdom, exactly as they wanted it, because they were the money men and they called the shots and they did what they wanted to do. So when America, which of course was part of England at that time, was first settled in 1607, then 1620 in Boston, and other times, the Jews said they're like communists. In fact, they are communists. All right, it's like Hitler said, it was very difficult to find a Jew in Germany who wasn't a communist. He wasn't against the Jews. Hitler was. Now, I might get some flack for this. Hitler was not against the Jews, okay? Hitler was against foreign invaders who took over Germany, okay, financially and otherwise, and his main enemy were the communists. He hated communists with a passion, okay? So, getting back to the situation in America, the Jews, the banker Jews, and the merchant Jews said, look, with our long-range plan, let's devise America as our country, okay? We'll have a long-range 50-year plan, 100-year plan, 200-year plan, and in 200 years or 250 years, we'll own and control America, which is pretty much what they do right now, okay? So they said, let's start it out by funding a revolution, because the people in the colonies are very upset with the king. Well, we're part of that upset because we're telling the king what to do and how to do it. So there was all sorts of troubles in America, taxes left and right. The people didn't like that. They had no representation. They had no voice. They were taken as slaves. They resented that. So the Jews said, okay, we'll fund the revolution. And they did on both sides. And the revolution was a fraud. Now, people are going to, again, say, no, that's not true. The revolution was a real thing. Yeah, it was a real thing. But many real things are frauds, okay? You just have to find out later on whether it was real or fraud. Yeah. Okay. We don't denigrate the people who fought the revolution. We praise them. They were very brave men and women, extremely brave men and women, especially excuse me, trouble with my throat tonight, especially the black regiments
Pastors.
who were the pastors, the church leaders. Okay.
Yeah.
Without them, the revolution would not have gone as well. Okay. After the revolution, and we can get into reasons that we really don't have time to get into here, but a lot of things in the revolution didn't make any sense. All right. We won't get into that right now. But after the revolution and the Treaty of Paris, what have you, the nation was set up, and the king delegated his sovereignty to the people of this country, of America, the new nation, not to the president of the nation, and certainly not to the government of the nation, to the people of the nation. So here we have two situations. Number one, the Constitution that delegated the authority to the people, and number two, the king who ceded America to the people and designated them as sovereigns. But the American people have never considered themselves or used that power of sovereignty. Never. That's a mistake, okay? Even in a fraud, that's a mistake by the people. So after the revolution, the government was formed, Constitution was put together. The original Constitution was the Articles of Confederation. The powers that be out of England did not want the Articles of Confederation because they were dealing with 13 separate colonies, and they didn't like that. They liked everything centralized. We love the Articles of Confederation because it gave the power to the individual states and to the people within those states, okay? And we didn't have all the social nonsense in the Articles of Confederation. But since the money powers, let's just call them that from now on, since the money powers and the power interests, the power people, power players, what have you, wanted control centralized, we have the Constitution. The Constitution came forth, became a federalized nation instead of an individualized separate nation of sovereign states, which it theoretically still is, but it was centralized with power in DC, central power. So they said, fine, we got that. Now we want our president. So in the first election, and again, this is something a lot of people will not believe, but the first president elected in this country was John Adams, not George Washington, elected by the people and elected by the Electoral College. Why? Adams was a man of the people, okay? Adams was not an aristocrat. Adams was not a member of the wealthy slave club, as Washington was. Washington was the wealthiest man in the colonies. I think he owned more possessions and more lands than anyone else in America at that time, okay? And he also was an agent of the bankers, which people don't know. So when Adams won, the king went crazy, the power forces went crazy, the bankers went crazy. No, we can't have this. They had their agents here already settled in America, okay? They said, no, we have to change this. So it was a second electoral college vote, and miraculously, Washington won. Now, I can't prove that, okay? Except, as I've mentioned before a few times by our family histories, Adams was one of my direct ancestors, but those family histories stay with us. They don't get publicized. You can do your own research if you want, okay? So Washington was an agent of the crown, an agent of the bankers, an agent of the Jews. What was one of the first things he did? Well, not one of the first, but fairly close. He put in the first Jew-owned central bank in this country, the first one, called the Bank of the United States in 1791, okay? And we've had a central bank in this country ever since. Well, that bank was given a 20-year charter by the Congress, and the bank caused absolute havoc in this nation. People were losing their estates, their businesses, their farms, their plantations. People were going broke. Things were very bad. They were not very good at that time. So the Congress said, no, we're not going to renew the charter. Well, the central bankers and the Crown said, yeah, you either renew it or we're going to have a war. And we said, no, we're not going to renew it. So there was the War of 1812. And that was a real war. That was a bloody war. That was a vicious war. Okay. America was devastated. Washington was wrecked. I mean, Virginia was wrecked. Boston was wrecked. You name it. Okay. Finally, we said, fine, we capitulate because we were going down. We said, we'll have a second bank. That second bank was formed in 1816. And the president who was elected during that time vowed, this was Andrew Jackson, he vowed to kill the bank. And he did kill that bank. And when he was asked what his best achievement was during his tenure as president, his answer was, I killed the bank. And he did. He killed the power of that second central bank.
Yep.
But the power that the second central bank had, which was the same power the first central bank has, which is essentially the same power that the Federal Reserve Bank has now, minus a few elements, he vested into the state banks. Okay. So in one form or another, we have had an unconstitutional central bank controlling America in complete violation of Article 1, okay, Section 8, Clause 5. It's ridiculous. And the American people, unfortunately, did nothing about it then. The American people doing nothing about it now. Agreed. There are a few people and a few groups, a few scholars, a few others who have tried to stop these monstrosities that are unconstitutional practices, but they've gotten nowhere because the system is so strong. The system doesn't give a damn about what a few people say, a few groups say. They care what the society says. And as long as the American society supports the unconstitutional central bank and all of the unconstitutional actions committed by government, okay, and support all the evil perpetrated by this country, that evil is going to continue. So, and not only continue, but escalate, as we have seen it continue and escalate every decade, every year, almost every month. So what do the people want? Well, if the people really want a country that is a free country and not a joke, okay, a true country and not a hypocritical country, and a nation that can become, as it was designed to become by the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution, the shining beacon of light for the entire world, then the American people have to take lawful, effective action against that communist, corporate, controlled government that owns virtually every major position in this country. You think you own your own home, your own car, your own business? No, you don't. Okay. You are the tenant of your home. You know, you're leasing your car. You don't even own your own business because the government controls everything. And the vast amount of ownership the government has is something that people don't even know about. So the people have to become a lot wiser, a lot smarter, a lot sharper, and real fast. Now, let me tell you what we've been doing. Again, we're based on the power and the authority of the national Constitution. That's the only thing we use. We use that power and authority through what we call the constitutional affidavit process, not the commercial affidavit. We stay away from commercial affidavits completely. Other people have used those. If you want to use those, that's up to you. We stay away from them. They're commercial. We have nothing to do with commercial activity. Okay, as you said earlier, ML, we're not into money. We're not doing this for money, okay? We're not trying to help people raise money. We're trying to help people help themselves by returning their government back to a constitutional government. And as Margie said, we're on the razor's edge. I mean, right now, we live in a communist nation. I'll get into that in a little while. We live in a communist nation. There's no doubt about it. All you have to do is look around. See reality. See the truth, okay? Take the scales from your eyes and see the reality in which you live. We live in a communist nation. We have for a long time. Okay, Khrushchev came to the UN back in, he was the premier of Russia, communist Russia. He came to the UN in New York back in 1959, and he took off his shoe. He banged it on the platform. And he said, We don't have to conquer America. We don't have to fight America. America will fall into our lap like an overripened plum. We will institute
I remember.
socialism everywhere throughout your nation, and the people will wake up one day and find out they live in a communist country. He was correct. The American people, again,
Mhm.
the American people are nice people. There's nothing wrong with the American people. They're giving people, they're loving people, they're considerate people, but they don't know anything about government, and they don't know anything about politics, or they wouldn't vote, and they don't know anything about what's going on in their own country. Okay? And even if they know, they do nothing about it. Like the border is a sieve. I mean, how many have come through the border in the past year? Okay, enormous numbers. And most of them are young, brown or black, teenage or men in their 20s. Okay. And who brings them in? The
Right.
Jews bring them in. The Jews have NGOs
Mhm.
sponsored by the federal government, our federal government,
They're
to
paying
bring
for
these
it.
people in. Okay. And now what are these people going to do? Well, they're going to kill you. That's what they're going to do. That's why they were brought here. Okay.
Yep.
Remember, your
That's
government,
right.
which is not, thank you for verifying, your government, which is not your government, your corporation that pretends to be a government,
corporation.
has been killing you forever. I mean, my God, look at the stuff in the sky. Look at the crap in your food. Look at the water you're drinking.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, it's everywhere. The past 4 years have shown the American people that the American government, okay, which is the USA as we call it, the US government in the USA is not your friend. And they should realize
I like that. I like that.
well, it's true. I mean, if you look at all of the
The
positions,
USA.
yeah, really. If you look at all of the
True.
positions
Okay.
at the State Department and the executive office and the judicial office,
All the high positions are held by Jews.
most of the
All of
high
them.
positions are
All of
held
them.
by Jews.
Yeah.
Every president is surrounded by Jews as advisors. Okay. I mean, the Jews number less than 2% of the people in this country, but yet they have that representation, not only in the federal government, but in all governments in this country.
Something wrong.
Something
with the
awfully
picture.
wrong with that. Okay. So we have to recognize the world in which we live and take action against it. So getting back to what we do, we write a constitutional affidavit. If we ever get into trouble with anyone, no matter what it be, a board of directors or a board of commissioners or county committee,
School
whatever it
board,
is,
whatever,
okay,
doesn't
the
matter.
mayor, you name it. The first thing we do is write a constitutional affidavit, okay? And in that constitutional affidavit, we have various elements. It's not your typical affidavit that most people see. And we'll tell you how you can get our affidavit if you want. Okay, it's an atypical affidavit. Many elements. One of the elements is this. Several of the elements. We're based in truth, fact, law, and evidence. Okay. A lot of people are not so based in affidavits. You have to be based in truth, fact, okay, in an affidavit. You have to. And if we're dealing in governmental situations or with courts or what have you, you have to be based in valid law and evidence. And that's where we are. Now, what we do is make charges against our opponent, whoever the opponent is, the government official, whether it be a mayor or what have you, based upon his unconstitutional actions that have harmed us. Okay. So in our charges and claims, we cite all of his unconstitutional actions that have harmed us, and we cite what, excuse me, what amendment or what, excuse me. Yeah, it's bad. What amendment or what article of the Constitution was violated by his actions? Now, remember, we theoretically live in a constitutional nation. We don't, but theoretically, we live in a constitutional nation. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Everyone has taken an oath to that Constitution. Okay. They really haven't. I'll get into that too.
Don't even go there now.
But they've taken an oath to the Constitution. Pursuant to Article 6 of that Constitution, they're bound by oath to that Constitution and must uphold that Constitution as the supreme law of the land, superseding all forms of lesser law, including federal and state law, and get this, and the Constitution itself. Because remember, the Constitution cannot conflict with itself, and many of the amendments beyond 10 definitely conflict with the Constitution, okay? So the forefathers had a brain, okay? They really settled a great document for the people. Now, in that affidavit, we not only make those charges, but we give our opponent the chance to rebut our charges by means of his own sworn and notarized affidavit based in truth, fact, law, and evidence. Okay? Well, if we're based in truth, fact, law, and evidence, it's impossible for our opponent to write an affidavit and base his rebuttal in truth, fact, law, and evidence. No, it's never happened. In estimates, and that's all I can give because we stopped counting many, many decades ago, but in estimates over 70 odd years, we and our people have probably written over 100,000 affidavits to various government officials. That's all we deal with, government officials. Some corporations, but 99.8% government officials, okay? Not one response affidavit has ever been filed, not one, okay? Which means the type of affidavit we use that has different properties is taken seriously by the affidavit recipient. Okay. Now, when we send out the affidavit to the mayor, let's say, we not only send an affidavit to the mayor, we send affidavits to the supervisory and oversight authority of the mayor. Well, who's that? It would be the city council. Okay. The mayor is not a dictator. There's a city council that oversees what he does. Okay. So we send affidavits to all members of those city councils and basically state in the affidavit, unconstitutional actions have been committed by the mayor under your watch, okay? And you have a duty pursuant to your oath to stop and correct these unconstitutional actions. And we are demanding pursuant to that oath that you do so, okay? If you fail to do so, then you aid, abet, condone, and are complicit in those unconstitutional actions. So that goes to the entire city council. Could go to the city, city attorney as well. Okay, although we don't like to deal with those fools, we stay away from attorneys for various reasons, and I'm sure you're well aware of that, and most of your audiences too. So we don't have to get into it. Well, now that the mayor has been notified and his supervisory personnel have been notified, the heat's on, okay? Because the mayor cannot rebut the charges we made against him and support that rebuttal in truth, fact, law, and evidence because we have proof. We don't do this unless we have proof, okay? Everything we do is verified. Everything we do is backed up and supported. So the mayor's in tough shape. The mayor doesn't respond. The city council does not respond. And we have another position in the affidavit that says if you fail to rebut within 30 days by means of your own sworn and notarized affidavit, then you admit to all of the charges and claims contained in that affidavit and all of the statements and averments made in that affidavit, fully binding upon you in any court in this country without your protest, objection, or that of those who represent you, meaning the lawyers. Okay? That's usually what happens. Now, the affidavit is designed. Margie and I do not like to go to court. We've been in court many times, many times, too many times, okay? We don't really like to go there. It's a real hassle. We always have a problem, okay? Because, we're based in the authority and power of the Constitution. The courts are not, all right? We can get into that later. The affidavit is designed to resolve the problem before we ever go to court. And a very high percentage of the affidavits do resolve the problem, okay? Now, the ones that are not resolved, then we have a couple of choices. One, we could take it to a sheriff if you could find a constitutional sheriff in the country.
A real one,
A real one.
not just a talker.
A lot of people say they're constitutional sheriffs, but they're not constitutional sheriffs. All right. Now, Richard Mack at one time was a constitutional sheriff. At one time, Richard Mack did some great things at one time. Okay. And he and Prince, another sheriff, won a great case that we've used many times called Prince and Mack v. U.S.
Yep.
He did a lot. Okay. But that was a long time ago. All right. I don't know what happened to him, and I don't care what happened to him, but it's not the same guy that was there 25, 30, 40 years ago.
That's true.
It's a very unfortunate situation. Okay. So we're not going to go to the sheriff. All right. We don't have any outlet except court. So fine, we go to court. All right. Whether we're defendants or plaintiffs, we go to court. Now, obviously, we have no trust for the court. I'm sure most of you people know that the courts in this country are corporations. They're not courts. All right. You can go to Dun & Bradstreet and you can look up the local court in your area and find out that it's a for-profit corporation registered with Dun & Bradstreet with a Dun & Bradstreet number. Okay. Well, if it's a private for-profit corporation, which it is, okay, it's not a constitutionally competent court. Excuse me. Article 3 of the Constitution requires all courts, to be constitutionally competent courts. They're not. So the first thing we do is make sure that the affidavit, the unrebutted affidavit that we sent to the mayor and the city councilors, okay, are filed on the record with the court as supporting evidence to a motion, like, for instance, if we're defendants, not plaintiffs, to a motion to dismiss. All right. All of these affidavits that were never rebutted are attached as exhibits to that motion to dismiss. And in the motion to dismiss, we make our charges and statements as to why the motion should be dismissed on constitutional grounds. Now, remember, we theoretically live in a constitutional country. I started to say this before. Constitution requires that we live in a constitutional country. Okay. Article 4, Section 4 states that Constitution will guarantee every state a Republican form of government. Well, what's a Republican form of government? Republican form of government is a special type of government that is not government by man, but it's government by law. And what's the law in this country? The Constitution. It's the highest law in this country. And as I said before, that law supersedes any other form of lesser law, including federal law and state law. Okay. So the Constitution the affidavit as it is, constitutionally supported by the affidavits, stands as fact and truth before the court. That's a fact. But the court is not going to give you that because the court is a corporate, communist, domestic enemy court. We have to fight to get it. Okay. Now, the court is convened theoretically to hear the truth and to resolve matters in controversy. Court doesn't want to hear the truth. The court is not interested in the truth. The court runs from the truth, hides from the truth, tries to stop the truth. Okay. As an aside, one fellow that came to us some time ago got into trouble in a case up in Illinois. Long story short. So, in preparation for trial, the attorney general, who was the prosecutor in this case, filed motions in limine with the court, right, to deny the Constitution, deny the truth, deny the facts, deny the evidence,
And deny the fact that they take oaths and have to abide by them.
and deny this guy's right to even speak before the court.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how out of touch these courts are. They're
not
totally
out,
insane.
They're not out of touch.
Yeah.
They're totally corrupt
Wow.
and criminal. This is a sitting assistant state's attorney, okay, that did this. And we looked at it and laughed out loud. It's a pitiful situation when somebody holding an office like that can have the audacity to file motions in limine that are basically going to gag the defendant and totally take away his defense. And he expects the sitting judge to go along with it.
The judge will. Okay.
And, well, we don't know because
No, I mean, before we did what we did.
Yeah,
Okay.
we kind of, well, we stirred the pot a little, I'll say it that way. We sent out some information to a lot of our people on our list, showing what was going on and exposing these motions. And so a whole bunch of people wrote very disturbed letters to these folks, no threats or anything, just reminding them of their duties pursuant to their oath. And like I like to remind all the people that are listening, they don't have any comeback for the Constitution, okay? In other words, anything that a public official does, no matter what his position is, must be constitutionally compliant, okay? And it must uphold the Bill of Rights, okay? It must uphold the articles and the amendments. So when they don't do that, then they have absolutely no authority to do anything. So this pinhead basically committed treason against the Constitution and we the people. So essentially anything he does from this point on is going to be a nullity. Now we've seen in the letters that people are sending to the judge, to the state's attorney, and to the court administrators that they're raising these points. So the judge might be having some consternation about how he should rule on this particular set of motions, because if he rules in favor of the state, then what he's doing is completely eliminating this fellow's rights and any aspect of due process of law. So he will cause the court to forfeit its jurisdiction. And he'll probably say to the fellow, well, take it up on appeal, which he will definitely do. And then he'll probably sue the you-know-what's off these fellows. So it's going to be an interesting scenario to see how this plays out. But what was exciting to us and gratifying was that the people actually got it. And they said, wait a minute, this is wrong. They can't do that. And if more Americans did this, if more Americans stood up and shouted out and held their public officials accountable and liable for their actions when they're not conducted pursuant to the Constitution and pursuant to their oaths, we could actually fix the problems in this country, because we could remove these people. They're vermin. And we shouldn't give them an ounce of respect unless they have earned it. And from what they have done in action in their offices, they have earned our contempt, not our respect. And this is something the American people have to kind of get internally. They've got to get it viscerally, because we've been passive for too long. We've allowed them to abuse us for too long. And now we have to find our gumption and our spine, not to be cruel or aggressive or belligerent, but to be righteous in our actions and hold these people accountable, put their feet to the fire of the Constitution. And if they can't do that, then they don't deserve to sit in a public office, and they should be arrested and they should be tried. And if they're committing treason every day and harming the people, then you know what the penalty for treason is. It's death by hanging or firing squad. So this is what these guys need to know. They need to have to wake up every morning and go, oh, wait a minute, I'm accountable to the people. I better uphold my oath. They don't have any fear of us because we haven't done anything to hold them accountable, except for people like us. And when we did it, people who were watching from the wings, you know, the famous watchers from the wings, oh, you guys are crazy. That's not going to work. Really? Well, then when it worked, oh, we knew you guys were going to win. I said, well, wait a minute. Where were you a few months ago when we could have used some support from you all? Where were you? Oh, well, I was busy. You know, my daughter had
come lately.
Yeah, exactly.
The Sunshine Patriot.
The Sunshine Patriots are everywhere. And these are the people we need to stop dealing with. And we need to cultivate and awaken the true patriots before there aren't any of us left to do that.
So if this judge were to
I agree.
grant that motions in limine, he would commit treason on the public record.
Absolutely.
A lot of judges are stupid, but most are not that stupid. Okay, so we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back to the scenario in which we're talking about a fictional case here against the mayor and the city council. The court is supposed to hear the truth, and they run from the truth. The court is supposed to resolve matters in controversy. They don't want to resolve anything. All right. They want to find for our opponent right away. If our opponent is a government or a bank or a large
Definitely.
corporation, they want to get rid of us as much as possible and fine for that corporation as quickly as possible. All right. So the affidavit stands as fact and truth before the court. The truth is expressed in the affidavits we have filed with the motion to dismiss. And the motion to dismiss is all based in truth, fact, law, and evidence, and supported by constitutional positions. Now, for those of you who are in court or about to go in court, keep in mind a couple of things I said before. The Constitution requires this country to be a constitutional country, okay? Judges have taken oaths to the Constitution, must abide by the Constitution. You'll find in most state constitutions, there's a provision somewhere in the Constitution that the courts of X state must be constitutional states and uphold the Constitution.
Constitutional courts, yeah.
Yeah,
There is in
constitutional
Missouri,
courts.
Article 5,
Yeah, your
Section
state.
1.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. All courts in Missouri must be constitutional courts.
Yeah.
So, if you're a defendant, okay, in a court, and you're charged with offenses, are you charged with constitutional offenses? No. This is supposed to be a constitutional country and a constitutional court. And this is something I say to people, and they say, "Wow, I never heard this before. What are you talking like this for?" Well, we have to talk like this because if it's a constitutional court, it must deal with the Constitution. Therefore, charges filed against the defendant must be supported, or they must be constitutional charges. They're not. They're statutory charges, okay? They're policy charges.
That's right.
All right. We challenge those right away on constitutional grounds, okay? And we demand that the system support its charge based on the authority and power of the national Constitution by citing the articles and amendments that uphold that charge, that unconstitutional charge. They can't do it, okay? So we're in court. We know the judge is a criminal, okay? We know the judge probably hasn't even read anything. The prosecutor has, but not the judge, or he gets a summary. So he doesn't know what the hell is going on, and he doesn't care. So we have to get to the judge right away because we know the judge is going to try to railroad anyone. Mm-hmm. They look at you as a complete idiot, as a complete fool. When we walk into court, we walk into that court as if we own the court. We're dressed in expensive suits, expensive dresses, you know. We look the part, we are the part, okay? We never have 40,000 pieces of paper in our hands. We have a briefcase, okay? Everything is orderly. We have a look of, I hate to say it, but superiority on our faces because we are superior to these maggots running these courts. And we engage with the judge right away. We seek him out with our eyes right away, okay? And we stare this SOB down. We have no faith in or trust in him whatsoever. They may try to come on very friendly, but they're evil to the core, okay? How can anyone serve in a court that's supposed to be a constitutional court when it's a for-profit corporate court earning money from everyone who comes before the court through all sorts of bond structures? Okay? You can't be a sane, good human with honor sitting in that position. You have to be a piece of crap, a piece of evil sitting in that position. So that's how we look at this judge. Now, he'll convene the court, and this is very important. He'll look over to the U.S. attorney or whoever is representing the opponent. Is the government ready to proceed? And that idiot will say, yes, Your Honor, the government's ready to proceed. Mr. Flynn, Mrs. Flynn, or whoever is speaking for our position at that time, are you ready? No, sir, not at this time. We have some matters to clarify before we proceed. And under due process of law, I have that guaranteed right, okay? The court must be clear and precise. If there's any confusion, the confusion must be addressed right away, okay? If the guy doesn't know us, he'll say, go right ahead. And immediately we say two different things which are very important. And we can tell you how you can get this material if you want it, if anyone wants it. we say right away, you and the prosecuting attorney have sworn or affirmed oaths to the national constitution and the state constitution. Okay. I just made a statement based in truth, fact, law, and evidence. When we appear in court, we always, unless there's a reason why, we always make statements with a confirming question to the statement. We never ask a question in court. It's not a good thing to do because you'll be surprised at the answers you get. We make a statement that qualifies an answer to the question, okay? And then we say, is that correct? And if the guy's not a fool, say, yes, of course, I've taken an oath to the Constitution, all right? Now, depending upon the judge, we could say which Constitution, but in most cases, we don't, all right? We just want to win the case and get out of there as fast as we can. Then we follow it up and say, with all due respect, you and the U.S. Attorney are required to abide by those oaths, especially those before this court in this matter. Another statement based in truth, fact, law, and evidence. Is that correct? And when he says yes, which if they say yes to the first one, they'll say yes to the second one. Yes. We have just essentially won our case. Why? Well, what we have filed with the court, okay, on the public record, is a motion to dismiss, constitutionally supported, okay, and evidence showing that what we have presented is true and correct, okay? So he really has no choice at this point. He may think he does, but he doesn't. And further, that guy doesn't know the Constitution like we know it, and certainly the U.S. Attorney or the opposing attorney doesn't know the Constitution as we know it, because they never deal in it. I mean, they never look at the Constitution. They never deal in constitutional law. They can't tell you about the Sixth Amendment. They can't tell you about the 14th, maybe the 14th,
Anyway.
portions of it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Once that is settled, all right, then the system knows that it's on fire, all right, and we can burn them at any time. And usually from that point on, no matter the severity of the case, well, some take a little longer than others, but the average case duration is about 10 minutes, all right? We win very quickly because we're based in lawful constitutional authority. That's why I say we wish everyone in this country who goes to court would speak for yourself before the court, okay, and use these methods. Now, we've done a lot of shows. Of course, Michelle Moore, we've done a lot of shows on Michelle Moore. And she has a section on her website. Is that correct?
Well, you can get them on the website, but she also had her producer put together a playlist of some of the programs we've done with her, starting around this past December through current times. And that's on truthtalkamerica.com under Jack and Margy stuff. So if you want to go there, anybody, there's a lot of information that, you might find interesting. It might be helpful for you, because what we try to speak to are the basics here, because the basics are really what we should be promoting and using, because use it properly, it's the only club that we need. Remember, without compliance to the Constitution, no public official has any authority to do anything whatsoever. So you don't have to get fancy. You don't have to have 25 pages of history going back to the Magna Carta and all that. It's fun to research. It's interesting stuff. But when you go to court, it should be simple. You shouldn't have a script with you, because if you got your script there and you're memorizing it and you're going along and the judge is assessing you, as is the prosecutor, and they're going to throw you a curveball in the middle of your recitation, and you're going to get stopped cold, and you're going to go blank, and you can't pick up from where you were. And the next thing you know, you're finding yourself way off of your point and stuck in the middle of nowhere land and trying to find a way to get back to where you were. Not a good idea. You've got to internalize it. And folks, it's so simple. It really is. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Every public official is duty bound to uphold that Constitution. Whether he has a valid oath or an invalid oath, he's claiming he has an oath. He's sitting on a bench, he's holding a badge, whatever. He has a duty to uphold that Constitution and your rights that that Constitution recognizes and guarantees. But you've got to know that in your gut. You've got to know it in your heart and soul. And you have to be able to speak with conviction of the heart. And this is so important. You don't have to be a legal genius. You don't have to be an erudite person. You have to be someone who understands the basic premise. The Constitution's the supreme law. Every public official is duty bound to it. If he acts against the Constitution, he commits sedition and insurrection, and he invokes the self-executing sections 3 and 4 of the 14th Amendment. And in so doing, he vacates his office upon the commission of that act, and he is forbidden to receive public funds constitutionally, cannot do it. Very simple. It's a big hook. We've used this time and time again. And many people who have been challenged when they receive our affidavits and don't quite know what to do, when they start reading it and see piece by piece, fact by fact, right by right specifics, they're like, uh-oh, what are we going to do? Which is why oftentimes if it's a simple thing like, say, a traveling issue, and the people who get stopped unconstitutionally know enough to write an affidavit to the particular offending officer explaining his wrongdoing. He can't rebut that because everything these people are saying is true, factually correct, and supported by the supreme law of the land. Uh-oh. So what happens is when the court date comes, the officer just happens to be busy that day and can't quite make it. And our people know that if his opponent doesn't show up, they move for dismissal because the rights that they have guaranteed to them in the Sixth Amendment guarantee them the ability to confront their accuser at any stage of the proceedings. And they can't do that because he didn't show up. So guess what? I move for dismissal, judge. And the judges hate it and they grit their teeth, but they know if you know you're standing on solid constitutional ground, there's nothing they can do except dismiss that case. Okay? Otherwise, they're in the hot seat for breaching their oath. It's not difficult. I'm not saying it's easy because you have to have a little bit of chutzpah, some courage. But if you school yourself and you really, really learn to love the Constitution and understand what it really means, and I mean stand under what it means, because we as people, okay, we have been gifted with this Constitution. It's like a treasure chest. But most people have left it in the basement and it's gotten all dust over it and they forget about it. And that's a fatal mistake on the part of any American, because that Constitution is our best friend. And if enough of us would use it, and we would do so with conviction of the heart, the punks that have usurped the public offices that have become corporations instead of lawful, constitutionally operating governments, they're going to start worrying, because sooner or later they know the people are going to realize that these people are in fact criminals, they're racketeers, and they've been lying and cheating us for a long, long time. And once people get that message, things are going to shift, and it's not going to be too much fun for these public officials. And I think the American people might be just about getting to the point where they've had enough and they're getting ready to claim and exercise their constitutionally guaranteed rights, use their inherent political power, and show up for America. If we don't show up for America, then we have no one to blame but ourselves if we lose our wonderful country. And we've made a lot of mistakes as Americans, and we've allowed our government to make even more egregious mistakes. But we have to face that fact, and we have to start changing and doing things right, because if we don't, then this wonderful American experiment is going to be in the dustbin of history, and freedom will no longer live on this earth. Please take this part seriously, guys. You can do this. We're not geniuses. We just use common sense, and we've studied the Constitution enough that it lives in us. And I'd like to see it live in every single American. I really would.
Now, as Margie said earlier, we've done a lot of shows on Michelle Moore Show. She has a website, and she has on that website, Jack and Margy docs. Okay, so there's a whole slew of documents on that website that go over some of these positions. If you want to get our direct methods, you can go to our website, which is Citizens of the American Constitution.net, okay? And go to our menu. Well, first thing you want to do when you go to the website, on the opening page, is our constitutional teaching series, okay? It consists of 10 episodes, about 20 hours in length. That would be something very good for any of you who really want to know what we've done, what we do, what we've done, and what you can do to get into that teaching series. A lot of people really like it. Number two, you can go to our menu, which is listed on the website, and go to our, our constitutional methods. And there's quite a bit of information in there that you can download. You can also go to our constitutional court challenges. And that gets into what I discussed earlier about challenge 1A, 1B, and number 2, okay? Which qualifies the judge, all right?
And also expresses our status as living, breathing flesh and blood, men or women on the land, right? We immediately let these people know we know who we are. We're not U.S. citizens or municipal citizens. We're not slaves. We're not vessels. We're not corporate fictions. We are living, breathing men and women. We're American citizens or American nationals, whatever term you like, but we claim and own our American citizenship and every inherent right that that citizenship guarantees to us. And if we don't claim them and we don't demand them from our public servants, they are not going to just automatically give them to us, even though they should. They won't, and they will challenge you. So you need to understand what your rights are. And that's another thing. Don't even think about attempting to use the Constitution when you go into court if you don't know the Bill of Rights.
Oh, God.
Okay?
No.
You need to know that. And you need to know Article 6, Clauses 2 and 3, the Supremacy Clause, because this is where it states very plainly that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and that it supersedes any other lesser law.
Mhm.
And it says that every public official and every judge must take that oath and they must hold the Constitution superior to any other lesser law. So that's in a nutshell. You've got the strength of the obligation under Article 6 that's imposed upon every public officer. You've got the protection of the Bill of Rights. And remember, we always throw in the 9th Amendment, too, because that's the blanket, since it protects all of the rights that the founders didn't think to enumerate. They were smart enough to say, hey, we probably didn't think of everything and things could change, so we better put this in here. It's like a fail-safe. So we always use that, too. And we always remind people that that First Amendment is a First Amendment for a reason, because you have free speech. You have the right to redress your grievances to government. And when you go into court, you have the right to let that court know that you know that court is obligated to uphold the Constitution and your rights and to not suppress your free speech by telling you you can't bring up the Constitution in this court. And we've had people go to court who, before they met us, and said, well, we tried to bring up the Constitution, but the judge said we couldn't. And I said, and what did you say? Well, we said, okay. I said, wait a minute. You mean you let that judge, who's supposed to be a public servant, who's taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution, tell you you couldn't use the Constitution in his court? And they're like, well, yeah. I said, why would you do that? Why would you get him a free pass and let him get off the hook, the constitutional hook? Oh, I never thought I could do that. Well, why not? Well, he said I couldn't. I said, well, you know what? You're the master. He's the servant. And it's up to you to enforce the supreme law, because the judge isn't going to tell you about it, because he's working for the other
Yep.
side. You know, when you go to court,
Mhm.
let's say it's a traffic ticket and you got a cop that's working for the state, it's the state court. Well, they're both being paid by the same entity. So excuse me, but that's kind of a conflict. And then you got the prosecutor thrown in there and he's in the same boat. So where is the separation here?
There is no.
Mm.
There's not. So people have to understand that the deck has been stacked against them for
That's
a
right.
long time, a long, long time. And those of you out there who know sheriffs who say their Constitution, if you get an opportunity to discuss any of this with them, say, by the way, are you really a constitutional sheriff? And he's probably going to say, well, of course I am. And I took an oath. Okay. Well, how come you give people tickets? on private corporate administrative codes. That's not constitutional. Hamana. Or how come you throw people out of their houses on foreclosures that aren't even legitimate because the banks don't own the notes? They don't have any right to even initiate an action, let alone foreclose and steal that property. Shouldn't you be standing up for the rights of those people that elected you? Your first duty is to the people in the Constitution, not to the corporations and not to the banks. These are the hard questions that people have to start asking. Because if these sheriffs want to be respected by the people, then they have to earn the people's respect. And the first way to do that is to truly be a constitutional sheriff. Uphold the Constitution and not all this other corporate garbage. Just my 2 cents on that one. How to get it in there.
Good. Okay.
Oh, I love that. Let me ask you guys a question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So I know a lot of my followers have been in the sovereignty movement. They tipped their toe in there a couple times. They've either followed David Lester Straight, which I know a lot of them have. A lot of them have followed either probably Americans in Action or Anna Von Riots, whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have spent money with this education that, hey, if I file my affidavit of repudiation, I can change my status as a citizen into a sovereign. And then if I'm able to accomplish that, then I get all the keys to the magic kingdom opens up to us, and we're able to do this, and this, right? And, I never jumped onto that, even though I promoted, Americans in Action with my group, because they were coming from the trust law aspect, which made more sense to me than whatever David Lester Straight or them were even coming from, because trust law does trump common law and all the other laws. I guess in a principle it does, but there was always something missing, and that's why I never jumped onto that repudiation process, because I had too many questions that just could not get resolved or answered for me. There was just too much missing to that, and there was too much. There was no clear, concise methodology, even though they would come up, with their process, but it was different nonetheless. So can I ask you guys, so do you guys prescribe to this method of an affidavit or repudiation process itself?
No.
I mean, or do you guys teach that or not? Why
No.
not, then, if you don't mind me asking?
No, we don't, because first of all, you were born sovereign. You're a flesh and blood man. I'm a flesh and blood woman. I have inherent sovereignty in me from my divine creator. Nobody else is going to tell me anything different, because I have sovereignty in my own right. Okay. So when I go to court, I appear sui juris, sovereign in my own right. Okay. You got to know these things. That's simple. You don't need a piece of paper. You don't need to spend lots of money and a lot of time filling out forms. All of the nonsense that implied that people were U.S. citizens, municipal citizens under this corporation or that is bogus. All right. All of that was done without disclosure to the people and without the consent of we, the people. Remember, government of right works only under the consent of the people. If it doesn't, it's government of wrong. So you don't want to honor what was done in fraud. That fraud vitiates anything that they are trying to impose upon the people. And if you understand that, and you understand that all of those things have no lawful force and effect upon you. And I use the word lawful, not legal, because lawful is constitutional. It's constitutionally compliant. Legal, on the other hand, usually is not constitutionally compliant. And just because it's got, a bunch of words and some numbers and letters doesn't make it a law. Because if it doesn't uphold the Constitution in letter and spirit, it is not a law. It has the color of law. And we need to be able to distinguish that. And we need to be able to show our public officials that we know the difference and that they do not have authority to enforce the color of law upon us when that color of law is constitutionally contradictive and suppressive of our rights. It really isn't complicated. So all of that process is a waste of time and money as far as we're concerned. And it puts you under a different set of corporate control, because a state national, for instance, is a term that is
in code.
A codified term. And that's part of the corporate de facto government, not the constitutional legitimate government that we, the people, brought in and that we, the people, are subject to. So I would say, no, we have never recommended that. We've gotten a lot of crap from people saying, well, how come you guys don't want to do that? We don't have to. I know who I am. You should know who you are too. Every one of you listening to this, you should
Thank
know
you.
who you are. You know, I mean, our first thing, we're
That's
a living
right.
soul, okay? We speak and answer to a higher authority than any public official. And with the knowledge that came from that creator, our forefathers, bless their hearts, had the wisdom to say, well, okay, we're going to do something that's going to empower the people. So what happened? We've got our creator up here. We've got we the people. We have the Constitution that we stand on. It's under us. And under that are all the other public officials who want to hold positions in any public office. There's a pecking order. And it's up to us to lawfully enforce that pecking order. And that's all we've tried to do for all these decades. And when we've done so, and when our students have done so, we have been victorious. That's simple.
Let's talk about the
Well,
state.
thank you. I really appreciate
a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's talk about the state national. And we go into, on our constitutional teaching series that I just mentioned a little while ago, I think on day 8 and 9, we get into this quite a bit. But first of all, becoming a state national is supposed to free you from the constraints. State national is
More constraints.
codified, stating that you are under the corporate control of the state as a state national.
Yeah.
So how in God's name can you be free of corporate rules and regulations, whether they be federal or state? Now, in our constitutional teaching series, as I said, we get into this, but let's take a look at the original Constitution, okay? In the original Constitution, 1787, as amended, etc., with the Bill of Rights, you are one of the people. All of your people listening or watching are one of the people. Margie's one of the people, I'm one of the people. Mm-hmm. We are the American people, guaranteed inherent rights, okay, secured to us in the Constitution. All right, we have the life, liberty, and property that cannot be taken from us without due process of law. We have free speech. We have this. We have that. We have the right to earn a living. Okay, we have the right not to pay taxes on our property, etc., etc. We have all of these rights guaranteed in the original Constitution. Why would anyone want to become a state national and have rights guaranteed in the 14th Amendment, Section 1, and in the 1871 Corporate Constitution that puts you under the control of the corporate enterprise that you're trying to escape from? Doesn't make any sense, okay? I played a lot of sports. I used to box, football, what have you. If something didn't make sense, it was up here. You know, you have to think quick on your feet, 10th of a second, okay? If it doesn't make sense, there's a damn good reason as to why it doesn't make sense, all right? If it makes sense, which the original Constitution does, that's where you want to be, all right? Now, people can do whatever they want. Sure. If they want to spend a bunch of money and do a bunch of forms and this and that, they're free to do so, okay? But we would never do it, and we don't think it's advisable for anyone to do that. So you might take a look at some of the people who are teaching this nonsense that we call. Now, let me get back to where you can find our information, because there are a couple of places. The Michelle Moore Show has about 40, 45 shows that we've done with her over the past year or so, and they're all downloadable, all of them, okay? Secondarily, she has information on her website in the Jack and Margy documents. Next, on our website, as I said before, we have our constitutional court challenges that can be downloaded that explain all of this. We have the constitutional methods that can be downloaded, and we have the affidavit that can also be downloaded on our website. Or if you prefer, you can go to the Michelle Moore website, and she has our template affidavit listed at on her site that you can download anytime. Now, I just went through a little while ago a typical situation, okay, in a case. As I said before, for a long time we have not been helping people with their cases. All right, we used to help people all the time. We don't do it anymore because it's a waste of time. All right. I mean, we could help this guy, and behind him are another 5,000. We can't help the other 5,000 on the same issue. So we're concerned about dealing on the major issue at the seat of power in this country and removing that seat of power. All right. That's a very important position. So for people who want to do that, all right, as an objective, you always have to start crawling before you can walk, and walk before you can run, etc. So go into your own community once you learn our methods. Go into your own community with other people who have gripes as you do against the unconstitutional actions of government, and have those people write affidavits. Let's say have 500 people in a community that are very upset at what the city is doing. Okay, the city council is doing. Get 500 people who write the affidavits and take action against the city council if they do not rebut those affidavits in court if you have to. If you can find some sheriff who says, look, yeah, I'm a screw up. I've been doing a lot of things that I shouldn't be doing. But I really love the American people. I really love our Constitution. I really love what the Constitution can do for the people. And yeah, I will support you, constitutional. I'll back your play. If you can find a sheriff like that, you don't have to go to court, okay? But if you have to go to court, we laid out the procedure of how we proceed in court. And once you've done it the way we've set it up, with the valid affidavits, unrebutted by whomever you wrote to, okay? And with the motion, if you're a defendant, motion to dismiss, or if you're a plaintiff, okay, summary judgment, you can still, in any motion you file with the court, you can still support that motion with the affidavit as exhibits. The affidavits haven't been rebutted, therefore they stand as fact and truth before the court. The judge has taken an oath. You just confirm the judge's oath by his own words on the public record that he's taken an oath and will abide by that oath in the performance of his official duties. Therefore, he's mandated to that oath, and he's mandated to the Article 6 that holds him subject to complying with that oath under all conditions. All right. So you have the constitutional apparatus to hang this guy and hang the city council and hang the city. And this is what we would like to see happen. Now, over the past 4 years, we all know what has happened in our country. Okay, the government, not your government, the corporate government
corporation
has gone crazy. Okay, why? Because the people are complying with everything the government wants.
Didn't say no.
Yeah, there are some people who say no, but they're far and few between. I mean, most people in the heyday of the COVID nonsense will go to a store. Everyone was wearing a face mask. We never wore face masks. We never wore. We're practically the only ones who never wore the mask. So the people capitulated. The people have to say, no, that's wrong. I'm not going to take your mask. I'm not going to wear your mask. I'm not going to take the shot. I'm not going to do a 6 feet separation. I'm not going to do any of that. Okay. And if you take action against me, I'll take action against you constitutionally. All right. Now, remember, it's very important. I mentioned this before. This is on paper a constitutional nation. And we discussed how that is verified in the law. Okay. Therefore, any charges filed against you must be constitutional charges, which they never are, or constitutionally compliant charges, which they never are. So you can challenge on that basis alone. Now, of course, that's not the only challenge, but that's a major challenge. And when you demand that in the court, pursuant to the oath of the judge, okay, they don't know what to do. And the prosecutor certainly doesn't know what to do, because everything he does is based upon statute. And another thing you can do if you're in a criminal situation, all of the charges, the unconstitutional charges filed against you, okay, are brought up by the prosecutor, and he is at one time, well, let me say it this way. Excuse me, I'm getting tired. I have a sore throat. But let me say it this way. At one time, we presented affidavits all across the country. We were busy all the time, okay? We reached millions of people, all right? People started doing in courts and in public bodies what we were doing. And all of a sudden, over a period of time, laws changed, statutes changed, rules changed,
Okay, they made it
rules of
difficult.
evidence changed, okay? Rules of everything changed. At one time in most states, and it's no longer true in Missouri because you've looked into it, when a criminal charge is made against a defendant, that criminal charge had to be not only set up and charged by the Attorney General, okay, he had to verify that that charge was true and correct by means of his own sworn and notarized affidavit.
Yep.
You don't find that in many states anymore, okay? But it's still something that should be authenticated and verified, okay? How can a prosecutor put charges in a complaint, all right, based upon something he has no direct evidence of?
Or knowledge.
Okay,
He
or
was a
knowledge.
first-hand witness.
He was never there when the theoretical crime was committed, all right? How is he lawfully going to file an affidavit with the court stating that the charges are true and correct when he was never a first-hand witness who saw anything take place? All right. So we have to learn to challenge everything they do. Let nothing they do go by the boards, no matter how innocent. Challenge it right to the core. And what we would like to do is see people start challenging their own cities, their own city governments, their own county governments, their own school boards, people who followed our methods, okay, over the past 4 years. Not a lot, but some.
Those that did. Yeah.
Those that did, and there were probably a couple of dozen of them, remove school boards, okay, remove medical examiners, remove city councils, okay, made changes at hospitals. And we, as the people, have the power to do that, all right? But if we don't use the power that has been delegated to us by the Constitution, we're not helping ourselves. Okay, any last words?
My last words would be this: work on your sheriffs, because if you get a sheriff that will truly uphold his oath and you bring him a sworn affidavit of complaint, okay, predicated on the fact that you've informed your public officials of their wrongdoing, they haven't rebutted, so they have tacitly admitted it to the crimes charges that you have accused them of. That that sheriff is empowered, okay, by his oath to act upon a citizen's complaint and remove that official from office pursuant to sections 3 and 4 of the 14th Amendment. They are a constitutional remedy for constitutional violations committed by public officials. So if you can get your sheriff to understand this, he's standing on solid ground. And he's working in concert with the people who put him in office. That's what his job is to protect and uphold our rights. So that is an area that I would suggest everybody focus on. Put real constitutional people into the position of sheriff and make sure that you hold him to the line. This is a way we can remove errant public officials, whether it's locally or farther up the chain, by and through using Constitution and exercising our rights and our duties as American citizens. Okay.
Any
Wow.
questions or comments?
Well,
on that?
thank you. I appreciate that so much.
We
What's
appreciate
that?
it. Yes, a pleasure to be here.
It's our pleasure to be here. Thank you for having
Well,
us.
thank you for being here. Absolutely. You're welcome. Welcome. Well, you guys have been a plethora of knowledge and a fresh breath of air, honestly, because there was so much disinformation out there over the last few years of what we're supposed to do. And sadly, it seemed like it was inherently tied. If you were going to do the affidavit repudiation process, it was tied into Jasara, Nasara, the RV, and all this other things. And again, there was so much so much confusion.
Mhm.
Anything that it just wasn't based on constitutional principles. It's just not.
No.
And
Yes.
so I'm glad that you guys give a lot of clarity for that. You make it a lot easier to follow and digest. So thank you. You know, again, thank you. I appreciate your time for being here. And
Our pleasure.
we'll have to do this again another time.
Sure.
All right.
Happy
Well,
to do
thank you
that.
everybody for tuning in. Thank you. You guys have
Oh.
a rest of your good evening and the rest of your good week. We love you both. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Wish the
God
same for
bless.
you. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.